Shaft drive, final drive by Bevel Gears. It doesn't look that but you look at this, it's a pretty good sized picture. Of course, I don't know if that's the right truck, you know. It's the only
The case is similar.
yeah.
I don't remember if it has this cutoff in the back.
I got a call a couple years ago from a trucking company in New Jersey. They wanted to contract with us to restore their truck that their father had used to start the company. I would say the biggest issue with this particular truck was the fact that it was so bastardized. There was no aspect of any part of it that wasn't messed with and was original.
That's what I got when I did the Rex. So that's measuring it up for spacing and bill of material. So now I got to make another one for the body,
Right.
for the bed.
Right. We'll get her opened up. The first thing we needed to do, pretty much so Sam could have information, you know, to start ordering supplies and stuff, is remove the rear bed section. So we took the sides off, brought them in. We had to sand down the paint off one of the boards because we needed to know what wood they used back then. White oak? Red oak? Hard to tell.
It's probably white oak.
Yeah. Some of that wood has been replaced, right?
I would assume some has been replaced, but at this point we'll have to sand the other stuff that's on the frame and see if they use see if there's a common wood for the whole thing. I'm going to be taking measurements of the actual deck of the back. That's mostly timber. At this point, I really feel with the age of the truck that it should be boards for the bottom of the bed. And it's all plywood. But yet the way it's made, it looks like the plywood could have been there from day one. And it's screwed up enough or fallen apart enough that it could be original. That's all plywood. I know they had plywood back in 28. Whether they used it on something like this, I doubt it, because I've worked on a couple of fire trucks. I've worked on the wrecker we have out in front, and all the beds were made out of, well, 1.5 or 2-inch material. I got a feeling that's what I'd like to use on this truck. Here's a whole list of phone numbers. These guys either have parts for sale or they own a white truck, an early white truck. So by calling these guys, I'm going to find out a lot.
Right.
But I've sort of waited so that I have all my questions together. I don't want to call them 6 times. you
Right,
know.
right. Everything that comes off the truck, I don't care how small it is, how insignificant it might seem, has to get bagged and tagged with the truck number, the location, for future reference. I tell everyone we can't take enough pictures. Even if they're overlaps, we don't care. So many photographs have been taken and will be taken from this point forward for the rest of the restoration. But right now the wood structure is off the back of the truck. We can do all the dimensional measurements, getting the wood order put together. So that's where we're going to start with that before we start taking the cab and chassis apart. Another, tedious part of the job is when all these little bits and pieces, and there's hundreds of them, have to get sandblasted, that they're all tagged, but the tags aren't going to survive the sandblasting. It's up to the blasters to make sure that each tag goes back on the correct part.
These parts are for the white truck here that we're redoing. They're the metal parts that go and hold the wood back together, all the braces. So I'm gonna be setting them all up on the pallets here to get it so I can blast them, and then I'm gonna take all the paint and everything, the rust, all that off. And then once that's done, we're gonna epoxy them and get them ready to put back on the truck.
Most of the hardware was on the truck. Most of it was there. It was rusty and pitted, but in most cases it was easier to fill it, sandblast it and fill it, than to try to manufacture it. And so that's what we did. There was enough of the back frame so that we knew what we had to do. It was in pretty bad shape, and it wasn't really worth trying to save. It would have cost more to save it. So what we decided to do is make a whole new back rack. The next thing was to find out what kind of wood they had used. And that was kind of hard to tell because it had disintegrated so much. But from my past experience, I knew ash was used a lot.
But since it's a big order, I'll have one of my salespeople tally up all the wood.
Have to order some of that. And so we went with ash to build that body. Laid out the cross pieces, the ones that go from side to side. And they have a taper on the end, which is up about 15 inches or so. And that gives an angle on each end. And those pieces of angle we saved because they're going to be stained for samples. And then the next day I went down and I rounded the edges with the sander. So now what I'm doing is laying those planks out, putting the pieces on there so that the customer can see what it's going to look like.
Watch your finger. Yep. When the truck first came in, we went out and rolled it outside. All the wood on the back. And it was pretty bad. Over the course of the years, we don't know when, but it was built, rebuilt, probably multiple times. Plywood was put in place of probably some hardwood that it might have started out with. Badly rotted. A lot of pieces just thrown in the back of the truck. They weren't even attached anymore. So the first thing we decided to do was to take all the wood off the back of the truck, strip it down, and start with that. While we were trying to source out some of the other missing parts on the mechanical end, because they had grafted in a 250 cubic inch Chevy straight six motor, a Turbo Glide automatic 2-speed transmission. They cut the frame rails out of the existing chassis to make this work. They cut the firewall and the floorboards, and they added a diamond plate box because the valve cover on the 6-cylinder was protruding into the cab. So it got cut up pretty bad, and we had to try to source some of the parts that we were missing and had no clue really what we were going to find. We definitely used the original chassis that was given to us with the truck. We did find a donor chassis out, I believe it was in the Midwest, and purchased that, had it brought in. We loaded it onto the back of our flatbed truck. Brought it around back, unloaded it. Put the two chassis side by side, and there was definite differences. The donor chassis was about 1.5 feet shorter than the original that we have, but all the other pieces that we were actually looking for were identical, the cross members. So it was probably a different model chassis, but the pieces that we were concerned with, at least, were the same. Everything else is here. It's not cut up. All the mounts are there. And we were able to unrivet the cross members and use them on this chassis, the ones that got cut out. Also, the donor chassis that we purchased had an engine in it. But Sam was on the phone making countless phone calls, putting a lot of time into trying to locate an engine for us, even previous to the chassis showing up. So we did have a line on someone who had 2 motors they were willing to sell us.
In fact, I got a list right here. This guy's got all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
You know, I'm working on this
You are?
all the time. It may not look like it, but when I go home, I get on the internet. I spent probably an hour last night. Every time I go on, I find something different. I did find out one thing from this picture, that they had mirrors on there. There's a mirror up the top there. And the door is already off. I'm working on it all the time. Little bitch by little bitch.
I'm giving him a number of ways to go. Start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that be repaired on that fender. First thing what we're looking to do is strengthen the fender, get all where the spot welds are broken back together and welded so it will not move. And then he's going to move to the next spot, hammer and dolly around, weld the edges, and then we'll know we're close where we need to be. Everything will be straight, mocked up, using that as a template. And then he's going to go on to the rust repair.
This is the bottom. What you're seeing, this is the bottom of the white insignia.
Holy letters.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can tell there's nothing really holding this in. The wood's all rotted underneath.
I think that this thing that was white came with the chassis, and then they put this body on there. Because these are all custom bodies. If I show you pictures of white trucks,
That could be.
every one is different. They all bought custom bodies.
All right, so we're going to work on getting this down. We got to lay it on its back so we can fix the floor.
It's possible.
Once we started sandblasting the sheet metal in the cab, it's, you know, it has no structure to it once it's all taken apart from the wood on it, so it all just kind of warped. You know, it was nasty. It had house paint and, you know, layers of old, you know, stuff on it. So once we started taking it apart, they wanted to keep a lot of the original sheet metal, but once we started taking it apart and starting to sandblast it, it was a lot nastier than, you know, originally thought, and just the process of sandblasting kind of ruins the metal. We had 2 4x8 sheets of sheet metal, 16 gauge, and I just bent up a whole new cab for it, made it all brand new. So you think I should even go crazy with painting up here?
No, I wouldn't do anymore. Just
do
the inside.
Yeah.
You could paint this up to here.
Yeah.
You don't even have to worry
I
about
don't even
all
have to
this.
mask it off. Okay.
I wouldn't mask it off. With overspray, let it go.
Right. Okay.
Keep it simple, stupid.
It's cool, you know, meeting people like Sam. He's been there, he's done it, you know what I mean? Especially like in our trade, you know. And it's neat to learn stuff from someone with so much knowledge, you know.
You ready, John?
These are, you know, they're steel wheels. They're not like as if they're wooden or, you know, like other wheels of the period, but once we got them all stripped, no rust or anything like that. Brandon probably spent about a month sanding them, primering them, sanding them again before we painted them. And then, you know, we painted them. We had the tires remounted on, and here they are. Nice with tires on them now.
Mike wants to lay out all the bracketry and everything for the white truck.
All the shit I got upstairs is painted.
This way it
all
is.
the wood stuff.
Take up that whole section.
Well, I just want it because I don't know exactly how everything goes together. So just, you know, lay it all out. This is this, this is that, and then we could just start putting it on the truck. You know,
You got half the stuff down here and half the stuff upstairs.
I want it all in one
And
spot.
then, you know, you're not running back and forth going, oh my God, where's this piece? I don't know where that goes. At least lay it all out in front of you. It'll be a lot smoother. Because of the re-engineering that we had to do to bring the truck back to original, you have to make sure that the cab ends up in the right spot and the orientation to the brake and clutch pedals, and also the spacing to the headboard and the rear deck. every piece influences every other piece, and everything has to hit just right.
We're going to slip it in. It's really fun. How are we doing on this pulley?
We're good. We got plenty of room.
Pull it back out, readjust the cross member, whatever we need to do, put it back in. So sometimes, the cab is on, sometimes the cab is off. Same thing with the, with the headboard and the rear deck of the truck. We had to adjust that a little bit here and there until everything was in place. Then we would pull the motor back out again, secure all the cross members and everything where we want it, and then obviously reinstall it for hopefully the last time. The rear deck, the box, if you will, for the back of the truck, the wood box, that was quite an undertaking also, because we had to order all the wood, cut it all to size, drill, pre-fit everything together. So we started with the side racks, got those all basically put together. When everything was right, we had to take them all apart again to stain them and then varnish them with the satin, and then obviously put them back together again. So luckily with Sam's knowledge and all the photographs that we took while we were disassembling the truck is always a big help, because the whole crew downstairs always goes back to the computer to check the photos and make sure that this board is the way it's supposed to be, how it was then, this bracket goes here, this cross beam is for that, and it's invaluable to have those photos.
Oh, hey.
The whole wood or just this metal bar?
One and... There's that elbow piece, but it's on the other side. This is hooked to the truck. That lip on the hinge that comes out has got to stop.
Hey Rich, Jim, give me a call back. I want to talk to you about the seats for the white truck. No, I talked to Richie and we're just going to go with a bead. No pleats. It was a truck. It would be kind of overkill to
Do something. Oh yeah.
Yeah, bring it up. So we're gonna keep it semi-plain.
Flat black.
Yeah, just like the roof.
I was taking the seats apart, all the springs were falling apart, all the hardware, everything that mounted the springs together was wood, so the wood was falling apart. We put all new planks of wood on the sides, and new springs, new foam, new cotton, wrapped it all up, put a new black finish on, new vinyl.
Is it the other way that's got to go in first? We fit everything according to the steering wheel and the shifter and pedals. It's kind of like setting up a hot rod, you know what I mean? There's no book written for it, so we kind of, made our own. When we were ready to put the headboard on the back of the truck, it took about, 4 or 5 of us to get the thing up on there, because it's big, it's heavy, it's solid, it's solid wood, it's not made out of cardboard, so. We're gonna get over there. Okay?
could actually see the truck coming together, and it was very satisfying, all the time and effort and work that we put into this truck to bring it back to how it was. I think it weighs like 300 pounds.
Yeah, it's solid. It is really awesome.
Rich Hermann and Walt had shown up probably an hour and a half before the purpose-built box on top of a lowboy trailer was going to get here. So we went over the truck and showed them how to start it.
Yep, that's the hand throttle.
That should be. Okay.
Yeah, remove the pedal.
How to set the spark advance, retard, fuel on, off. Starting the old trucks with the cranks like that, you have to make sure that the spark is set right so it doesn't kick back. So we went through the whole procedure on how to set everything, and Rich Hermann, he took a hold of that crank and he cranked that thing over one time, started right up.
All right.
He wasn't intimidated at all from it. He just, like he's been doing it for months.
Well, the box is anyway. Yeah.
So when it was time to load up, obviously the truck was here, they opened up the box. I had asked Rich Hermann if he wanted us to, pull it into the box for him, and he said, "Oh, no, I'll do it." And he got in that truck like a pro. Backed it up, pulled it right in the trailer first time. It was, he did a really, really good job. Like he's driven it for a long time. The transportation company did an excellent job securing the white truck in the box once Rich had already, drove it in there. Put a lot of blankets around the rear differential and the front axle before we strapped it all down, and they did a really good job. When she was all boxed up, the crew had, sealed up the box, put the tarp on, and got her all tied up, hooked it back up to the semi. We're very proud of what we did, and sorry, sort of to see it go because it's very familiar around here. And she's pulling out of the lot. It was interesting because we have so much time and effort into that truck. It's almost like a piece of the shop was leaving, and we're actually going to miss it.
So often we live in the moment. We dream about the future, but we fail to stop and reflect on the past and celebrate and cherish those that have come before us. 3 weeks ago, we held an amazing and remarkably successful parade. That sole mission was to bring home the old timer. The old timer behind me was one of the original trucks used by our founders, Fred and Myrtle Hermann, to start Hermann. And for all of us here tonight, we owe a great deal of gratitude to Fred and Myrtle for taking that chance 95 years ago to create what has become an amazing organization. Vintage Motor Cars spent over 3 years restoring the old timer. From the bottom of our hearts, we wanted to thank you for taking on the project and restoring the old timer into what is now an incredible showpiece that we can proudly display at our corporate office, a symbol that helps tell the story of Hermann for years to come. Thank you. Here's to the old timer and for another 95 years. Cheers.